Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about the leftists and their tendency to cave in to cancel culture. They love pushing this and getting things canceled for lots of kinds of reasons. Anything that's not politically correct or perfectly towing the line with their left soft sensibilities has a chance to be put on the cutting block. And today we're talking about two big major media companies and major media properties that are going down in flames, mostly because of the leftists being empowered recently. They've had these events that sparked from Minneapolis, causing these riots and demonstrations to go on and on across the country. And now they have the power, so they're using it, and we're getting to see what they're going to do. What they're doing is canceling popular things that don't fit in with their narrative. For example, today we have two big examples, two major things to talk about. The first one is a TV show simply called Cops. This reality show was a big hit for Fox that started many, many years ago. It's been on TV for like 30 years now, and recently the show got canceled in light of these recent events. You could probably guess why. A show about cops doesn't really fly well when you're talking about all these leftist protests saying cops are all racist and evil villains. We all know that's not true, and cops are actually heroes. They're not as bad as people say, but regardless, that's the narrative that's going on right now. That's what's caught wind in the press and the media, and it's caused this show to go down, which is really sad. We're going to talk more about that show and another movie that got canceled too, a movie called Gone with the Wind. This movie is actually much more historical. This is one of the biggest and most famous movies of all time. It's from a very long time ago, but in its time, way back in the early 1900s, like early film era, it was like the biggest hit ever. It was selling the most tickets. It was in theaters for a really long time. It's a historical piece of art that's now been removed from HBO Max. We're going to talk about that, Cops, and this whole story more soon too. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. Guys, did you know that after age 20, people produce 12% less collagen in their skin each decade? And for some, it can be an even greater decline. And collagen, of course, is a really healthy, really good aspect to your life. So getting it into your system is more important now than ever, especially with these other health scares going on in the nation. That's why I suggest you get this top-graded, amazing collagen product from healthwithnobs.com. Brought to you by BioTrust, you can now get up to 50% off while supplies last. This collagen is perfect, and it's a high-quality protein source that you just need to add water to. You guys better check it out today, and make sure you have a great day and stay healthy and safe. Great, and remember, these sponsors are what keep this show going, so supporting them helps support No BS. Now, on to today's story. Today we're talking about Cops and Gone with the Wind getting canceled by leftist culture. The reasons are pretty obvious. The first show has to do with cops, which are becoming these villains now, according to the left. And Gone with the Wind was a film that had to do with the olden times of America, mostly to do with slavery. It took place on a plantation, so you could see why that's problematic now, but really, we should be watching these things and open and being interested in what's going on. I mean, Cops was a show that they say glorified the police, but really it just showed the police arresting people and taking them down. It was just a kind of interesting approach. They just put a camera guy in a cop car, follow them around, pretty simple, but it was very effective and it worked for many years. In fact, like we said earlier, it's been on for like 30 years, and Fox originally created the show. It moved to the Paramount network over recent years, and sure, it's kind of waned already. And I think in this case, in my perspective, it was actually just ready to get canceled anyway. It wasn't like as political as they claim. In fact, I think they're trying to make it a political move just to get some clout for that channel, for those companies and stuff like that. They're just trying to cancel it to get a little attention to their other shows or something. But regardless, let's get more details on it in this article. It's from Newsweek. It's called Cops Canceled TV Show Has Been Accused of Racism Ever Since It First Aired 31 Years Ago. Wow. A long-running show. This is an American staple, by the way. That's why it's been a part of our pop culture for decades. And to see it go down because of these protests that we all know were caused by the misinterpretation of a arrest gone wrong, that sure, someone died and that is terrible and that shouldn't have happened. We should punish the people that caused it. But at the same time, to take down the police stations, first of all, and then now we're taking out anything that even has to do with cops. A cop show is today's example. And previously we talked about how they canceled Legos, and they wanted to take the cop toys out of Legos, and who knows what other companies making possible related toys are going to go down, and who knows the ramifications of this. Next, they're going to start saying we can't have cops in movies and other TV shows, like the fictional ones are going to be bad now. Like, what's going to happen to movie series like Lethal Weapon or Beverly Hills Cop? These classic movies have been a staple of pop culture for years too. There's always been a good kind of buddy cop movie, things like that. And this is the first step in kind of ending that era. The cops on TV is almost done. It's not going to really happen in the same way anymore. And it's kind of upsetting, kind of a bummer and a letdown. And that's why we're kind of going over it and getting you guys the details. Let's see what else this article has to say. Long running unscripted police series Cops has been canceled for 31 years amid widespread protest against racism and police brutality. But the show has been accused of racism ever since it first aired in 1989. Following the death of George Floyd, who died on May 25th when Minneapolis police officer knelt on his neck for 8 minutes, Paramount announced it was pulling the plug on Cops with no plans to return. A spokesperson said, Cops is not on the Paramount network and we don't have any current or future plans for it to return. Cops follows officers on their shifts, making arrests and recording interactions with the public, which often become violent. The series began life on Fox, where it aired for 25 years before its first cancellation. It was then picked up by Spiked Network in 2013, which is now known as Paramount Network. So, as I was saying before, it was already a show that got canceled before. It was already on its last leg. I mean, it had a good run. So, that's not really a defense of it. It's just kind of explaining why they canceled it now. It was just already gone. It probably wasn't making them a lot of money anyway. And in addition, there's another police based show that's kind of taken over. It's called Live PD, I believe. Yeah, it's called Live PD. And that's the news show that kind of has been getting way more traction than Cops. Cops is a little dated. Live PD has been updated. And I've actually seen that show a few times before too. They do a few different things. They go to all these different cities and they have like a main control room. And it's a bit of a different setup. So yeah, Cops has been on for a long time. It had some tough competition and it was ready to go. So them taking it down now isn't necessarily like the end of the world for the fans and the show. It's kind of already died down, but it is a lame move for the network to kind of capitalize on this current event. They're trying to get in on this drama, in on this sort of story. Everyone's kowtowing to the left right now. Everyone's given into this whole narrative. The cops are all evil, that kind of stuff. So that's why it's really bad. That's really the worst part and why we're concerned and going over it today. Cops premiere in 1989 garnered negative reviews from the late New York Times TV critic John J. O'Connor, who pointed out that the show's optics did not portray race in an equal light. O'Connor criticized that he dubbed the dominant image of the first episode, the overwhelmingly white troops of police are the good guys, and the bad guys are overwhelmingly black. Okay, so this is already showing that it had a bad rep in the beginning, and I could see that. Like, I get what they're saying. Like, that's some kind of optics you could perceive, but I think that's more on you, and it's more like that's just the way a lot of these cities are. Like, these kinds of people are applying to be police, and these kinds of people are committing crimes. I don't really see like that as a racism thing. It's just a coincidence. And it's a coincidence we've seen the stats reflect. I mean, as far as the cops thing, I mean, cops can be any race or creed or anything. They could be anyone. They're very diverse, actually. And you'll see that on the shows. But as for the criminals, those guys, there's a really, really high representation of certain minority communities committing more crimes. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's not the cops' fault. That's not the show's fault or racism's fault or our systemic racism or whatever. It's because those people commit a lot of crime. That's the truth. That's what's going on. And anyone denying that is just trying to defend these criminals. And we've seen that happening over and over again in recent history. And that's another thing that's really bad to see. Documentary filmmaker and podcaster Dan Taberski last year started a podcast called Running from Cops, an 18-month investigation that explores how police would sometimes coerce subjects into signing releases to be filmed. It also alleges that the crew members have carried weapons and assisted officers on their beat. Some of Taberski's findings include that 46% of violent crime arrests of African Americans and 50% of those arrests of Latinos appear before the commercial break. Okay, so now they're just kind of beating this dead horse. They're kind of like beating the cop show when it's down. They're saying it was racist and this and that. I'm not buying it. Like, I'm not here to talk crap about cops and this show. It's already canceled. Like, let them die. Let them go in peace. And as far as these numbers and stuff, I mean, it's really just I think it's random and it's coincidence. Like perhaps there was a few of these more of these minority arrests in the beginning of the show, maybe because they were more exciting and more fun to watch. It's not necessarily like a racism thing. It's not because, oh, people want to see this group arrested more. It's like, no, that's more entertaining. And truth be told, I mean, a lot of these groups, especially African Americans, they tend to resist arrest more and create more drama. And that's what people want to see on the show. I'm not for that. I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's just the fact of the matter. We've seen it time and time again. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news and give you guys these harsh truths, but someone's got to say it. So that's why we got here. Next, let's move on and talk about Gone with the Wind. This article says it was pulled from HBO Max until it can return with historical context. And that's the trick right there. That's the buzzword a lot of liberals are using right now. They try to say context and they don't know what it means. They don't use it the right way. Like providing context is really just like giving you some background information. Like, for example, if you see a character in a movie that you just turned on the TV and someone slaps the other character in the face. You're like, what happened? What was that? And then maybe your friend's like, oh, well, last episode they did this to that person and that's why they're mad. That's the context, the background. It's not really what they're going for here, though. What they want here is they want to like rewrite the show and rewrite the history and give it its context for a liberal means like kind of reframing things and taking over. I mean, a lot of things they've been doing recently reflect this. Another example in the real world is how they keep trying to take down all these statues in the world and they're trying to like take them down, defame them, destroy them, whatever it may be. And they might call that like giving the history context, but really they're just hiding that or destroying that and being destructive. And in this case, I would say changing or defiling Gone with the Wind could be seen as a similar case. It's like putting a mustache on the Mona Lisa. It's a work of art. It's been around for almost 100 years as well. I think it's from the 1930s. And it's just to reframe and redo this just for a streaming service that's trying to kowtow to leftists. It's really a bad look and it's really depressing too. HBO Max has pulled Gone with the Wind from its library of films. The removal of the film comes as mass protests sweep across the U.S. following the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who was killed while in police custody. So, this is an interesting framing. They like to say unarmed a lot and they like to point out the race a lot. And then they say in police custody, like he didn't do anything wrong. But the truth is, unarmed people can still be dangerous. They can still be on drugs or violent or attacking. I know that in this case, George Floyd was resisting arrest really hard, and he's a really big dude. So even him being in handcuffs, he could headbutt, bite, spit, kick, like he could do lots of stuff. It took four guys to try to get him down when he started resisting. And that's just not really a fair characterization, but we know CNN's not fair. We know that they're biased and they want to make this guy out to be a hero. The 1939 film, which tells the story of Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler during the American Civil War, is considered by many to be a cinematic classic and is one of the most popular films ever made. However, the film is also incredibly controversial. The film's portrayal of slavery, African Americans, and the Civil War South has been received much more critically in the decades since its release. Well, yeah, of course, because now we're in PC land and we're in this sort of clown world where you can't even talk about history anymore. And this film is historical, so it may have addressed these issues that are controversial, but it's also something from 150 years ago. It's a movie, again, from the 1930s, like 80 years ago. It's really, really different to judge it on modern sensibilities and try and re-edit it. That's just the worst idea. I mean, if you don't want to watch the movie, don't watch the movie. That's the thing. That's what I don't get about all this censorious stuff. Like, you don't have to watch it. But that's not enough. The liberals want to control and they want to remove it so no one else could watch it. They don't want you to watch it. And if you do, they want to re-edit it and put in like a black main character or something. Make the other side character a lesbian or LGBTQ. That's what they want to do. And it's just really frustrating because now they're time traveling and also canceling popular shows, long running shows like Cops, we previously talked about. And now this movie, which again, I can't overstate how big and monumental the Gone with the Wind film is. I know a lot of us might not have seen it. I haven't even remembered it since I saw it when I was a kid. And I know it's like really long. It's like 4 hours long. It's a different era. It's from a long time ago, but it's still something that's historical. It's like something you'd watch in film school or in a history class. And to see them defile it and remove it and just kind of don't give other people the opportunity to watch it, it's really messed up and it shows how their priorities are really whack. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to get this video shared, and until next time, you guys have a great day.